before everyone was talking about biohacking, George St. Pierre was building the perfect fighter. Right. And like what's actually interesting is that, before cold plunges became like a trend, GSP was already doing it. You know, before people were honing in on their training, GSP was doing it. Right. And like especially during his like early in his era, there was not really honestly a lot of thought behind martial arts. He like low key kind of was the guy who brought it back. You know what I mean? Because Bruce Lee already had it, but then GSP like brought it back to like the modern MMA era, right? And like what's interesting is that GSP himself talks about like how he wasn't really that talented or that great in the beginning, and like in fact he was training with people that he said like were better than him, but he just stuck with it long enough to where he basically became arguably the greatest of all time. He engineered himself to be that, right? And it's like this man trained with some of the greatest minds that you can train in martial arts and combat sports just to gain like a little bit of that advantage, to gain that 1% advantage. You know what I mean? We talk about like, even in my previous video, like I talked about how Bruce Lee was like the first like biohacker, right? Did that for MMA. He was the one who low key perfected it for MMA. You know what I mean? Now, of course, not everything, not everything anybody does is perfect. But nonetheless, it was like pretty damn good. You know what I mean? And like it's like he was like really obsessed with it. Like he was that dude. You know what I mean? He was out here training with everyone, bro. He was out here training with every martial art he could get, with every martial art expert, with John Danner, with Faraz Zahabi, with Greg Jackson, with literally Freddie Roach, Manny Pacquiao's boxing coach. Like he took this shit seriously. Like who's out here? Do you know any MMA fighters that are consistently training with like a high level boxing like expert? Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. And honestly, it's like a shame because you know what I mean. Like boxing will really improve your like MMA striking. I mean your MMA skills overall. And like he was the first guy to really like do that. Honestly, and it's a shame that like not a lot of people like do it. You know what I mean? And it got me like thinking like like you know me for me like GSP has a high key always been like an inspiration. Like he's the guy like if you had to emulate someone, that's the guy that you gotta like, pretty much emulate. Honestly, 'cause, like forget about anyone else. Honestly, like GSP like that's the guy you gotta emulate. Honestly, like he was out here amazing at grappling, amazing at striking. He was out here grappling grapplers, out striking strikers. I mean that should tell you everything, right? Like that's how much of a force of a force he was to be with, like to be against, you know, a force to be reckoned with. Like, like this, like a lot of people shit on him for like, I guess like winning a lot by decision, but it's like, you know what I mean? If you're getting like molested for like 5 rounds straight, I mean, can you really talk shit after that? You know what I mean? Like, if like your favorite fighter is like literally getting dog walked the entire 5 rounds. Is that GSP's fault or is that fighter's fault? It's that fighter's fault. You know what I mean? I mean, like, come on now. Anyways, you know what I mean? Not to get into this, like, you know, pointless banter about, like, GSP and whatnot. It's just yeah, like, this dude was out here, I mean, like, basically training different. I mean, taking this shit seriously. Because a lot of people don't take this shit seriously. And it's like, you claim that you're like about this life. It's like, are you really? Like, do you train as seriously as you could? I mean, GSP was clearly very serious, and that's what made him arguably the greatest of all time. I mean, like, look at the roster of like people he was training with, right? And it makes you think, like, yeah, like that's pretty much the guy you gotta emulate. Like, if we're being honest here, like, and what's interesting about GSP is, there's actually some like things that even like, because again, like a lot of people say like they don't have any outer perspective like look, but he talks about like how there's certain things that even he would have changed in his career, right? Right, and like a lot of fighters don't think in that way. And one thing I think really made GSP really good is that he cross trained with everyone, with everything, right? He basically was the guy who like in a way invented cross training. And this is gonna be a side point, and low key I should make a video on this for that. Like anyone that tells you to just be blindly loyal to their gym, fuck out of here with that shit. I mean, literally the greatest fighter of all time was out here. You've been training, cross training with multiple like different gyms. I mean, most fighters out here are like cultists and like they want to be blindly loyal to like one gym or one like coach or whatever. But GSP wasn't. He literally traveled like everywhere he could. He sought specialists, right? He traveled everywhere. He sought specialists. He literally, in a way, stole knowledge from everyone, right? He like took knowledge, like he literally applied the Bruce Lee philosophy of take what is useful, reject what is not, right? Out here training with John Danaher in like New York and shit, and then he would go back to TriStar in Canada, and then he would train with like Freddie Roach and like if I'm not mistaken, Freddie Roach trains in like either it's California, like here, or in Las Vegas, right? But the point is, right? And then Craig Jackson in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? He like literally treated MMA like a science experiment. I mean, that's probably the best way I could describe it. He saw these advantages everywhere. He wanted to be the best at everything, right? Like he was out here boxing maxing, Muay Thai maxing, grappling maxing. I mean, the whole like 9 yards. I mean, he was out here doing it all as best as he could, right? And at the time, like, you mean, John Danaher was not like this mega star that he is now. Like back then, like, not a whole lot of people trained with him. And back then, like, I think like again, bell system is like a scam and whatnot, and I've talked about it. But I think he would only train with like a guy who was like a blue belt or some shit or a purple belt, and that was like a big deal back then, right? But nowadays it's like very easy to find someone that's like very, higher level, let's just say. It doesn't necessarily build a coach, but it just means that they're higher level in the perspective of martial art, right? And he himself came from a karate background, a karate Kyokushin background, right? If I'm not mistaken, Kyokushin, right? And he was basically a striker who evolved into a grappler, which you don't see that a whole lot often, right? And that's what helped him. You know? Honestly, I think like a lot of people talk about his timing. Like, yeah, that was definitely a thing for sure. That karate timing definitely helped his takedown, right timing. But yeah, I mean, this guy was like really special, right? Like this dude trained with like everyone, right? And like, what I mean, most fighters don't really like that. You know what I mean? He learned all this stuff from arguably one of the greatest grappling coaches of all time, one of the best boxing coaches, like, one of the best like MMA coaches, right? Even Frost the Hobby, like his coach was kind of like, and kind of like that, like thing that kind of rubs off on you. It was like, it was why like low key, you gotta have like, I'm not gonna say you can never make good progress with like, yeah, I mean, like with like the best of coaches, right? Of course, you're gonna make amazing progress, right? But I'm not gonna say the coaches are the end all be all because again, there's a lot of fighters within that same gym, right? And this is like everywhere, right? But there's like that guy who's like the outlier. Of course, you just pick the outlier here, right? In this case, and it's like, yeah, I mean, and it's like, GSP is like the great outlier here. It's like because he himself was like different. Like a lot of fighters, like I said, I'm sure even within that same gym. Like I'm not here to talk shit or anything like that, but I'm just saying this is like everywhere. You'll see that one guy who's like the outlier in the gym. It's because he has like the more methodological approach. he's more of like, I don't want to say like, he's just more thought. He's more thinking about what he's actually doing. Whereas instead of just mindlessly like, it's like, mouth breathing and like, mindlessly trying to do the technique. No, he is actually putting some thought and intention behind his technique. Right. Right. And I think a lot of people, like, we're all like a little guilty of it. We're like in class, like, like learning about something and like, your kind of like mind just wanders somewhere else. But it's like, no, we gotta like pay attention. It's only for like an hour or two. We gotta pay attention. We gotta put some thought behind the technique, behind what we're learning, right? How can I actually use this? And GSP had very much of that, like, a student mindset. Like, I'm just a student, right? And that's honestly like the best mindset you can have when it comes to martial arts. And yeah, I mean, this dude was like, yeah, I mean, this is the guy you gotta like learn from, honestly. Like, right. And one thing I was like, even Frost, how do you like a lot of? I've seen a lot of his stuff too. Like again, and even he like traveled with GSP a lot of the times whenever he would train. Because funny enough, they both started off not as student and sensei type of relationship, but it was more like they were two training partners. You know what I mean? They kind of like learned from one another, right? And I mean, a good mark of like I'd say a coach is like where even the student kind of surpasses the coach. You know what I mean? Right? And yeah, I mean, Frasabi, of course, pretty much did that with GSP, right? He pretty much did that, right? And like, you don't really see GSP fighting like emotionally. Like everything about this dude is like very strategic. Like it's almost like he's like a chess player. Like, it's like, you know, he's obsessively learning. Well, that's how you gotta be, honestly. Like game planning, adapting, opponents. Like he's breaking them down and everything. Right. And he would be willing to learn like from the expert of the expert. Right. Best Muay Thai fighters, you know, best fighters from everywhere, right? And like even recently, like he had a video with DJ, and even in that video, he had very much of a student mindset of like trying to learn like the flying armbar, like the suplexing armbar, like yeah, suplex armbar from DJ that he landed on the rib hook, right? And it's like even at that level, he's still willing to learn, right? And like even in this the whole video, like he's like how about like damn, like I should have, and I wish I would have learned more from you when I was fighting, right? Like that student approach is like the best approach you can have, honestly. Right. Also, another thing that I think it's like he was one of the first few people that like really kind of took gymnastics seriously from me, and it's like low key, I gotta explore that myself, honestly. Like I gotta find some place somewhere where like I can kind of like learn gymnastics because again, I'm on my athletic maxing journey right now myself, right? And I just remembered the other like GSP was like super into gymnastics. He would do a flip after every fight. I remember that too. It's like, and I think honestly, like gymnastics definitely makes you a really good athlete. I did a little bit of gymnastics in high school, but like that was more like at the open mats. I like looking back, I should have like spent a bit more time doing gymnastics. Now that I think about it, right? But it is what it is. You know what I mean. The point is, yeah, I mean, gymnastics has great benefits. Body awareness, I mean, mobility. Right? Of course, you're going to become flexible just by default of it. Right? You're going to become very pound for pound strong. I mean, like, you will build a lot of, like, muscular strength, calisthenic, like, strength with that. Right? Gymnastics rings and all that, right? Spatial intelligence and all that, right? Which is very needed with martial arts and, like, MMA, right? And what's interesting about GSP is that even though like he didn't necessarily grow up doing certain martial arts, like for example, wrestling, he was still out here out wrestling people. Like, that should tell you everything. Right? He studied it obsessively. I remember I think he worked with some like elite level wrestlers, with as many elite level wrestlers as he could. Right, and of course he combined it with his timing that he learned from karate. Right, that obviously. was like super big. And what's interesting with like a lot of his like fitness training that I've noticed is that, it wasn't necessarily like built on just like powerlifting or like, lifting a lot of weight or anything like that. It was very much like very focused and specific. Like I remember he was one of the first people that I noticed that like kind of did like fascia style training even before like it was really a thing, right? He would do like these weird like medicine ball like types of like where he would like, you know, it's hard to describe, but like you would have to see him do it. But it's like he would put his leg on like a medicine ball and like twist the other way and twist the other way. Right? Very interesting styles of training, right? Again, I think there's a lot of help and correlation with that with martial arts, especially with like kicks and stuff, right? And like his more so thing was again focused on athleticism, explosiveness, and injury resistance, right? Instead of like pure bodybuilding, right? And it's like, even for myself, like as you've seen in my previous videos, right? Like my goal for the longest time was building muscle. It was why I didn't really focus on these other more athletic style like trainings, right? That like a lot of people do, or GSP did, but now that's what I'm honestly gonna start doing. Because now that I've gotten to my muscle mass goals, I've basically got here. I'm gonna try and like do more of these athletic style movements, right? And GSP also did a lot of sprinting, which again, I talked about this in my other videos. Sprinting does help with testosterone building, right? Amazing tool, right? You do a lot of like explosive movements, plyometrics, right? Like he was honestly just a complete athlete overall, not just martial arts, but complete athlete overall. Right? It's also interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say he's the first fighter to do this because I feel like a lot of fighters were doing this. But cold exposure therapy, right, or AKA ice baths, right? He was he was obviously doing this because of recovery, and again, I talked about this in my recovery max video, right? Right? How it builds, how it helps you recover, right? Mental toughness, inflammation control. Again, it was years ahead of this as a game, right? And even like, you know, even like the mental games, like he would always also like I remember he was talking about like this. He would like read books and seek out experts, right? Granted, I have my opinions on like certain things he did seek out, like sport therapy or whatever. Personally, I think even his coach John Danaher disagrees with him, but it's like he was still like actively seeking out information, which is like a good thing, right? That's what we're more focused on, right? Even if I have my disagreements with it, but it's like it shows you like he was like still trying to seek out as much knowledge and expertise as he could, right? Right. Right, and it's like, what's very interesting is like he would do a lot of visualizations, you know what I mean? Just like a lot of like mental work as well, which you don't even see that with a lot of fighters today. A lot of, again, like I said, a lot of fighters are just like mindless brutes. You know what I mean? Like just mindless brutes. You know what I mean? Like, of course, GSP was not that, right? That's why, like I said in my other video, like if you look at some of the greatest fighters of all time, like they were not mindless brutes. They were all like very intelligent, right? If you look at, like I said, GSP, you look at DJ, Demetrius Johnson, you look at John Jones, you look at Fedor Emelianenko, Ilya Topuria, Islam Makhachev, Khabib, like all these guys, like even in other combat sports, like Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali, like all these guys were like very like, you know what I mean? They were mentally like, I don't want to say mentally sound, but they were mentally aware and mentally like intellectual, at least like comprehensive with their training and like overall with everything, right? Right. And of course, this goes to, this goes to say that of course he optimized like everything, his like lifestyle routine, right? Which includes his sleep as well, deep sleep recovery, right? He had a very good solid routine as well. That was also another thing, right? And this should show you that GSP is still like that even now when he's like retired. He's still like, because one thing I remember watching a video with him and Paulo Saladino, right? Paulo Saladino being the animal based diet guy. which again, I think is a pretty good diet. Again, I have my little disagreements about it, but it's still overall like a pretty good diet in my opinion, right? Right. And one of the most fascinating things about this is that him and GSP are like talking, right? And like he really talked about like how he regrets not being able to do this diet while he was, still fighting and competing, right? And he wished he understood nutrition better. But again, it's like at that time there was a lot of propaganda, and it's like yeah, unfortunately, yeah, there was a lot of propaganda. And this is what I kind of like don't like about the biohacking spaces because the like idol worship a study that just comes out. It's like, like there was a study before that like, was completely false and now this new study. Like, how do you know anyways, how do you know like it's even true? It's like, I mean, again, there was a lot of propaganda, so I don't blame GSP for like not having the best diet. Because he was probably just listening to the experts and the nutritionists who were full of bullshit back then. And even nowadays, honestly, I wouldn't even recommend getting like a traditional nutritionist. Right? Like honestly, like not even to like be that dude, but it's like you're better off listening to me or like Paul Saladino or like what I mean? Like you're better off listening to people like us who are actually how many of these nutritionists are actually sick? None of them. Like, slop ass motherfuckers. Talking about like, oh no, actually, calories in, calories out. Ugh. Yeah, fuck out of here with that shit. Right? But the point is, GSP, even after his retirement, he can like, look in hindsight, oh yeah, this is what I would have fixed. Right? It's like he talks about like how whole food matters. And what I'm assuming probably what he probably did is like he would probably take this nutrition, like this supplement stack, which probably had a bunch of artificial ingredients, and he would overload. And he probably had that calories in, calories out. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? A boneyard mindset, which a lot of people back then definitely did. Right? I think he even talks about it like he would have definitely focused more on like red meat organs. You know what I mean? Just like overall whole foods. That's what he would have definitely focused on. Right? It's like damn, like he would have been even better. Like he wouldn't have all these digestive problems that like he currently has now. Like I believe he has like Crohn's disease or something, or is it like ulcerative colitis, whatever it's called. Right? He has that. Right? And it's like, one thing about GSP is like a lot of people also overlook this is that he likes saying natural and everything. And it's like he was a very big advocate about like, blood work and like, medical monitoring of like, steroid use in the sport, right? Which was also another thing, right? This is how you already know he was thinking like a biohacker and not just like a mindless brute. I mean, right? Despite living in an era of like basically roid heads, right? He was still out here thinking like a biohacker, right? And that should tell you everything, right? Right? Most fighters just ignore like health markers, physical condition, recovery status, and like he was out here doing all that, right? It's also interesting about GSP that I think I had a video on this. It's actually a video in one of my programs that I have. It's called prehab or pre-rehab, right? Right. And he kind of had this methodology of like doing certain exercises to prevent injury, like injury prevention before the injury happened. Because a lot of people will do these exercises after they've been injured. Like, for example, they have like knee pain. They'll do it after they get that knee pain instead of like before and like focusing in on like training the knee, right? And like he would do a lot of like, pre-rehab, as I like to call it, right? Mobility work, a lot of joint strengthening, corrective exercises, stability drills. And yeah, I mean, that's a lot of things that he would do, right? I mean, he in general honestly had a very high IQ, not just in like the fight IQ, but just like overall, right? Of course, he'd be like the guy who would study tape. Like he was talking about like how when he was studying BJ Penn, like he realized uh, frames per second. BJ Penn had faster reaction time, like which is very interesting. How many fighters even today talk about shit like that, right? Yeah, like we gotta like, and he was doing that, back then. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe like a decade ago. It's like we can learn from this, man. Like we can learn a lot from this. He studied tendencies, films, patterns, opponents' weaknesses, like very well. Even he was a very good like strategist. I feel like honestly, too many people are just mindless boots, like I said in this book. Like I remember one time, I was like, I was talking to this one dude that I know. Like we used to be friends and shit. But it was like I remember telling him like, hey, you have this match coming up, and you should probably study the guy you're going to be competing against. And he just disregards it. Like he's like, oh no, it's not that important. I'm like how are you this retarded? You have the opportunity to look at some film, and you just don't want to do that. It's like you deserve to lose if that's the case. It's like what in the fuck? No effort ass motherfuckers out here talking about oh no actually. It's like what? How could you be so retarded? Like legit, like straight up retarded like that. There's no other way to describe it. It's like what in the fuck? It's like like the sad thing is that guy ended up losing the match. And it's like how what did you expect? It's like the fuck is wrong with you, right? And it's like at the time, you know, our coach at the time also was telling us like, oh, the guy is like a big judo guy, or no, he was just a leg locker or some bullshit. Turns out he was kind of a judo guy. Yeah, actually, yeah. And even like from the videos that I saw of him, like he wasn't even a leg locker like that. Yeah, yeah. It's like what the hell? Yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like these mindless brutes, they still exist in our modern era. It's like I don't think that's ever gonna change. There's always gonna be like retards that will like not listen to anything, even if it costs them. Even because even after this match, it didn't seem like anything changed with this guy. Right? But besides the point, it's like I mean, don't be that mindless brute. Like actually be methodological with your approach with MMA, right? So you actually think and like invest in research. Like a lot of people think that if I just hire a coach, that's like all I need to do. It's like yeah, like the coach is there to help you, the stepping stone, but that doesn't mean that like you know what I mean. You just become Massa said so. Right, so therefore I'm doing this. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm just because Massa said so. Like yeah, sure, he may be an expert. That doesn't mean he can't be wrong. Right? I mean, lo and behold, years later you find out like what he was doing was like wrong, right, or not 100% correct. Right? That's why you kind of have to have your own mind in this game, right? And of course, you respect what people say and whatnot, but I mean, like you have your own mind in this. Like you're not just a mindless boot who doesn't think. Right. This is what made GSP like really special, especially in an era which I like to call 2005 MMA, or I like to also call it Boomer MMA. Right. He used to live in that era of like overhands and panic wrestling. Basically, that's all like these guys would do. Basically, but GSP was the one guy throwing Superman jabs. You don't even see that technique even today. Right. Who is out here throwing a Superman jab? Honestly, one of my favorite techniques. Right. Right. Like I really like that technique. And then yeah, like out here throwing like Superman jabs. It's like he revolutionized the game. Like he had arguably one of the best jabs in the game. Right. It's overall like best everything, best grappling and best striking. Right. He used gymnastics for MMA. Right. And these are the things that GSP did that almost nobody did or even does today. Right. Reversed engineered wrestling without a wrestling background. Right. Prioritized recovery. Prioritized exercise science. You know what I mean? He was like a scientist out there. Like he monitored his health, which again a lot of fighters don't. But I think is insane. It's like you're competing in one of the most direst, most dangerous sports, and you don't, you won't study that shit, right? You won't invest some time into actually taking care of yourself, monitoring your health, optimizing movement. Like, instead of he was the guy who was optimizing movement and martial art prowess instead of chasing this pure aesthetics. Right? He became obsessed with incremental improvement, and I think that's what really made him really good overall compared to everyone else. And, even like, like I said, taking account into, later admitting that he wished he had taken nutrition more seriously, right? That's probably the only thing. But again, I think a lot of it had to do with the propaganda at the time, right? Which is why, it's sometimes hard to see for a lot of us, like, even for me, like, even I fell for that bullshit, you know what I mean? It wasn't until, like, again, being, like, obsessed with this shit that I saw, you know what I mean? That, oh yeah, a lot of this nutrition shit is, like, just propaganda. Anyways. But yeah, I mean, GSP, man, he was like that OG biohacker friend of me, like, doing shit like nobody else was doing, right? Honestly, you guys can learn so much from him that it's insane that you guys haven't. And I will talk about in a lot more detail in the biohacking for MMA program, right? I highly recommend you guys join. Click the link below and you can join, right? Right. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, this dude was ahead of his time, for sure, for sure. He's like, honestly, like, if you talk about the perfect fighter, he's like pretty much that guy. He's your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. It's pretty much arguably my favorite fighter. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, like this video and hit that bell notification. And until next time, until greatness returns, I shall leave you in the echoes of excellence.